Welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to be looking at Midas touch, why some entrepreneurs get rich and why most don't.
Oh, yeah.
It's co-authored by Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump.
Interesting pairing.
It is two very different paths to success, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm really curious to see what they have to say together.
Yeah, like what common threads are there?
Exactly. So the book uses this interesting metaphor of the Midas touch, right?
Okay.
To kind of outline the traits of successful entrepreneurs. So each finger on the hand represents a different attribute.
Makes it easy to remember.
It does, yeah. So the thumb is strength of character. The index finger is focus.
Right.
Middle finger is brand.
Got it.
The ring finger is relationships.
Okay.
And then the pinky finger is for all those little things that make a big impact.
A lot of little details. Yeah.
Exactly. And I noticed of all the fingers, focus seems to be something they emphasize a lot.
Yeah, Kiyosaki actually draws a really interesting comparison. He talks about his experience as a gunship pilot in Vietnam and the need for absolute focus, in those life or death situations. And he applies that same intensity to business, saying it's not just about working hard, but about choosing where to direct that energy.
So saying successful people sort of deliberately choose the difficult goals.
Yes, they really emphasize that. They both seem to believe that true success is often found on the other side of challenges. They also are pretty outspoken about their views on traditional education when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Oh, you mean they don't think a traditional degree is enough?
They actually value real-world experience much more. They believe that learning from your mistakes and having mentors who are successful entrepreneurs themselves is far more valuable. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, actually. What do you think about formal education versus real-world experience, especially in entrepreneurship?
That's a really great question. Something that I thought was interesting is that they talk a lot about building a strong brand.
Yes.
Which seems to be something that they see as absolutely crucial for success in today's market.
Yeah. And Kiyosaki, he tells a story about a company he started early on called Rippers.
Okay.
They sold nylon and Velcro surfer wallets.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was a good product. It sold well. But he didn't put any effort into building a strong brand around it.
So what happened?
Well, it was easy for others to copy.
So he basically lost out because he didn't create a brand that people really connected with.
Yeah. He kind of contrasts this with brands like, Pink Floyd.
Okay.
Where people have such a strong association with the brand that they're willing to pay more for it.
Yeah, it's that emotional connection, not just the product itself.
Exactly. And then Trump comes in and he adds his own perspective. He talks a lot about the gold standard and brand integrity, maintaining that high level of quality and excellence.
I like that. Okay, let's move on to the ring finger, the Midas touch. Relationships. They really highlight how various relationships are absolutely vital to entrepreneurial success.
Yeah, it's not enough to just have a great product or a great service. You need the right partners, employees, customers.
Your network.
Yeah, your network, even the media.
Right.
Kiyosaki talks about, choosing the right business partners. He even talks about his time in the underground economy and the challenges of relationships in that world.
What does he have to say about that?
He actually advises against it, ultimately. It might seem, exciting and appealing, but it comes with a lot of risks and limitations.
It's hard to build something sustainable and have a lasting impact in that environment.
Yeah, that's his point. Trump, on the other hand, is all about surrounding yourself with the best people, having a strong professional network, building those relationships. This is a good question for you, actually.
Yeah.
Are you nurturing the right relationships in your network to help you succeed?
That's a great question. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and forget about those connections. Let's move on to the little finger now, the little things.
Yeah, this is interesting. Both authors talk about how important it is to pay attention to detail.
Especially as your business starts to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Trump is, he gives a good example. He's really hands-on in his real estate projects.
Yeah.
Like he's known to personally negotiate the prices of furniture.
Wow.
He really believes that no detail is too small.
It's about sweating the small stuff and how that all adds up to the bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. Kiyosaki takes a slightly different approach to this. He talks about focusing on the individual, even in large-scale operations. He tells a story about preparing for a speech.
Okay.
He was going to be speaking to a huge crowd, and he realized that Instead of feeling overwhelmed, he needed to just focus on connecting with each individual person.
Makes it less intimidating.
Yeah, and it makes people feel seen and valued. And that applies to any field, right? Not just business.
Absolutely. Okay. I really liked what they said about generosity as part of the Midas touch.
Yeah, it's not just about taking personal gain, right?
Yeah. It's about using your success to have a positive impact.
Yeah, they both give examples of this. Trump talks about his support for veterans organizations, youth programs.
Right, giving back to the community.
Yeah. Kiyosaki focuses on the importance of financial literacy.
Empowering others.
Exactly. And they emphasize that it goes beyond money. You know, giving your time, your energy, your expertise to causes that you believe in.
It's about making a difference.
Right. So before we continue our deep dive,
Yes.
let's just quickly recap what we've covered so far.
Okay, great idea.
So we talked about that Midas touch metaphor where each finger represents a key attribute for success. We talked about focus, real-world experience, the power of building a brand.
We also talked about relationships.
Yes, the importance of those.
Paying attention to the little things, and then also how generosity can be a part of that Midas touch.
Right, and now I think it's time to move on to some of the specific advice that they give for aspiring entrepreneurs.
Okay, let's do it.
So first and foremost, they both emphasize being a lifelong student of business.
You mean constantly learning and adapting?
Yeah. You know, the business world is constantly evolving, so successful entrepreneurs are always, learning new things.
Makes sense. What else?
Focus on acquiring assets, not just money.
Oh, this is Kiyosaki's rich dad, poor dad philosophy.
Exactly. He believes that many small business owners are essentially just self-employed, trading their time for money.
Okay.
They haven't really built a system that generates income independently.
So it's about building a system that works for you even when you're not working.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. And that applies beyond business as well, right?
Yeah.
Investing in real estate or stocks or even your own education. Those are assets that will appreciate over time.
What's their third piece of advice?
Assemble the right team.
Which goes back to those relationships, right?
Yeah.
Recognizing your own strengths and weaknesses and finding people who complement your skill set.
Exactly. They talk about how to identify and attract those people, emphasizing the need to have people around you that have the talent and expertise that you may not have.
It's so important. What's next on their list?
Understand your own strengths and weaknesses.
Self-awareness is critical in any field, I think.
Absolutely. And they argue that it's crucial for building a successful business. You need to know what you're good at and what you need help with so that you can delegate effectively.
Yeah.
And get the training or mentorship you need in the areas where you're weaker.
What's the final piece of advice that they give?
Build and protect your brand.
Yeah, we talked about this a bit earlier, but it's definitely worth emphasizing.
It's one of your most valuable assets. You have to be strategic about building it and protecting it, making sure it resonates with your audience and that you're delivering on what you promise.
This is great. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of this book.
There is so much more to unpack.
Definitely. But before we continue our deep dive,
Yes.
I think it's important to connect this back to our listener, right? And why all of this matters.
Absolutely. This isn't just for aspiring entrepreneurs.
Right.
These principles can be applied to, any area of life.
So whether you're starting a business, changing careers, or just trying to improve your personal life, these are principles that can help you find success and fulfillment.
Right. Success is a journey. It's not a destination. There are going to be challenges and setbacks along the way.
Yeah, that's life.
But embracing these principles, these Midas touch principles, can help you navigate those obstacles and actually come out stronger on the other side.
So before we move on to part 2,
Yes.
I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
Think about which finger of that Midas touch metaphor, needs the most strengthening for you.
That's a good one.
Is it strength of character, focus, brand, relationships, or even just attention to detail?
Yeah, because by identifying your strengths and weaknesses, you can kind of create a roadmap for your own journey towards success.
Love that. And remember, the journey is just as important as the destination.
Absolutely. Welcome back to our deep dive into Midas touch. One thing that really stuck with me was their emphasis on learning from failure.
Oh, yeah. They weren't afraid to admit their mistakes, were they?
Not at all. They really embrace it as part of the process.
I think that's refreshing. A lot of business books kind of just focus on the success stories, but
Right.
it's the failures that we probably learn the most from, right?
Definitely. Kiyosaki talks about, his failure with rippers early on and how that taught him the importance of brand building. And Trump shares his experience with the Grand Hyatt Hotel project, which was this massive undertaking.
Oh, tell me more about that.
So back in the 1970s, the area around Grand Central Station in New York City was, pretty rundown.
Yeah.
Trump saw an opportunity to revitalize it by acquiring and renovating this old Commodore hotel.
That sounds risky.
It was. Even his own father was skeptical.
Wow. So what happened?
He ran into all sorts of obstacles, financing issues, difficult negotiations, pushback from the community, but he persevered. And in the end, the Grand Hyatt Hotel became one of his most iconic successes.
That just shows, the importance of believing in yourself, even when others doubt you.
It's a testament to resilience, that's for sure.
It is. So Kiyosaki talks about this concept of the underground economy, this world of entrepreneurs who are kind of operating outside of the traditional system.
Right. So they're not paying taxes, not following regulations.
Exactly.
He acknowledges that while this might seem appealing, it has its limitations and risks.
Yeah.
It's hard to achieve lasting success in that environment.
He's not really advocating for it then?
No, not at all. He actually advises against it. He believes it's difficult to build something truly substantial and have a lasting legacy in that world.
So it's about building a business that's, legitimate and sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another thing they both emphasize is the role of mentors and coaches in entrepreneurial success.
Right. It makes sense to learn from people who have already done what you want to do.
Exactly. Kiyosaki talks about his rich dad, who was his best friend's father.
Okay.
And he was the one who kind of instilled in him that entrepreneurial mindset. And Trump learned from his father, who was a successful real estate developer, as well as other entrepreneurs he met throughout his career.
So they're really highlighting the value of finding people who can guide you and offer insights from their own experience.
Exactly. So you mentioned earlier the concept of the little things.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about what they consider those to be and how they contribute to success.
I'm curious too, actually. What are some concrete examples?
Well, Trump's meticulous attention to detail in his projects is a good example.
Okay.
Like I mentioned earlier, he's known to personally negotiate prices for even, small things like furniture.
That hands-on approach.
Exactly. He's very involved in every aspect.
Yep.
And he sees this attention to detail as a key factor in the overall quality and success of his projects.
That's pretty impressive. What about Kiyosaki? What's his take on the little things?
He focuses on the importance of focusing on the individual, even when you're operating on a large scale. He tells a story about preparing for a speech to a huge audience.
Yeah.
And he realized that instead of feeling overwhelmed by the crowd, he needed to shift his focus to connecting with each person individually.
So it's about recognizing that even in a massive operation, it's those individual interactions that really matter.
Exactly. Make people feel seen and valued.
It makes sense.
And this applies to any field, right? Not just business.
Right. Now, Kiyosaki also talks about different types of intelligence.
Oh, this is interesting. Tell me more.
Yeah, he argues that, traditional education often focuses too narrowly on things like linguistic and mathematical intelligence.
Right, the standardized tests and all that.
Exactly. But he believes there are other types of intelligence that are equally important for success.
Like what?
Well, he talks about interpersonal intelligence, which is, the ability to connect with and understand people.
That's crucial for entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. You need to be able to build strong relationships with partners, employees, customers.
Mm-hmm.
He also highlights interpersonal intelligence, which is understanding yourself.
Knowing your strengths, your weaknesses.
Yeah, and being able to manage your emotions effectively. He sees that as essential for navigating those inevitable challenges and setbacks that come with being an entrepreneur.
Right, having that inner strength to persevere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Trump really emphasizes, the importance of maintaining a strong brand throughout the book.
Makes sense. He's built a global brand around his name and his businesses.
Yeah.
What are some of his insights?
Well, he stresses the importance of quality, consistency, and attention to detail in building a brand that resonates with your audience. He also talks about the importance of, strategically managing your brand in the media.
Which is so important these days.
It is. He shares anecdotes about how he's dealt with media attention, both good and bad, and emphasizes the need to have a thick skin and not let criticism derail you.
Yeah, that's valuable advice for anyone in the public eye.
Definitely. So going back to Kiyosaki's idea of focusing on acquiring assets, not just money.
Yes.
How does that principle specifically apply to entrepreneurs.
He argues that a lot of small business owners aren't really true entrepreneurs. They're self-employed, trading their time for money.
Meaning they haven't created a system that can generate income without their direct effort.
Exactly. True entrepreneurs focus on building businesses that can generate passive income through assets.
Right.
It's a shift in mindset, you know?
Yeah, from working for money to building systems that generate wealth.
Exactly. So what are some examples of assets that can generate passive income?
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, he talks about real estate investing, building businesses that can run without your constant involvement, and creating intellectual property that can generate royalties.
Okay.
Those are just a few examples, but the key is to think long-term and build a foundation for lasting wealth.
This definitely requires discipline and patience.
Yeah, it does. But the payoff can be huge. And both authors emphasize the importance of, just taking action.
Yeah, it's not enough to just have a great idea. You got to actually do something.
Absolutely. They both talk about, facing challenges and setbacks along the way, but never letting those stop them. It's about having the courage to, step outside your comfort zone and embrace the unknown.
Learning from your mistakes and using those experiences to fuel your growth.
Exactly. They also talk about, the importance of building a strong personal brand.
Right. That's something that's relevant to individuals too.
Absolutely. Not just companies.
So what are some key things to consider when building a personal brand?
Well, Trump, being a master of personal branding, emphasizes things like authenticity, consistency, and visibility.
Makes sense.
He also talks about the importance of building relationships with the media.
That's crucial in today's world.
Absolutely. It's about being strategic and using media to your advantage.
Right.
And he also encourages people to be fearless, not to let criticism hold them back.
Before we move on to part 3,
Yes.
I want you to think about your own personal brand.
Okay.
What are your strengths? What are your values? What are your unique contributions to the world? And how are you communicating those things through your actions and your interactions with others?
Because your personal brand is always evolving.
It's a really empowering thought. We have the power to shape our own narratives.
We do. So let's take a short break, and we'll be back soon for the final part of our deep dive into Midas Touch.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Midas Touch. We've covered so much ground, from the entrepreneurial mindset to focus and brand building.
Relationships, generosity.
Right. It's all connected.
Yeah, it's fascinating how they weave it all together.
It is. Now, I'm curious about the practical side of things, like raising capital. It's such a crucial aspect of building a successful business.
Absolutely. And both Kiyosaki and Trump, they actually offer some really good advice on how to approach potential investors.
Oh, okay. What are some of their key insights?
Well, first and foremost, they emphasize the importance of a solid business plan.
Right. Investors want to see that you've thought things through.
Exactly. It's about showing them you have a clear vision and a realistic plan for how you're going to execute it.
Not just a pipe dream.
Right. They also talk about building relationships with potential investors.
Okay, so it's not just about the pitch.
No. It's about understanding their motivations, connecting with them on a personal level.
So building trust is key.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is interesting. They both suggest that it's actually easier to raise capital when you don't desperately need it.
Really? That seems kind of counterintuitive.
I know, right? But the idea is that when you're not desperate, you're in a stronger position to negotiate.
I guess that makes sense.
You can be more selective about who you partner with and what terms you agree to.
So it's about approaching fundraising from a position of strength.
Exactly. And of course, being prepared, professional, persistent, all of that is crucial.
Treat it like any other aspect of your business.
Right. Exactly. With strategy and a commitment to excellence. Now let's talk about something that's often overlooked in discussions of entrepreneurship.
What's that?
Generosity.
Oh, yeah. We tend to focus so much on the profit and personal gain.
Right. But Kiyosaki and Trump, they argue that true success is about more than just making money.
Okay.
It's about using your success to make a positive impact on the world.
It's that giving back aspect.
Exactly. They give examples of how they've incorporated generosity into their own businesses and lives. Trump talks about his support for veterans organizations, youth programs. Kiyosaki focuses on the importance of financial literacy.
That's a great way to empower people.
Right, giving them the knowledge and tools to manage their money effectively. And they both emphasize that generosity goes beyond just money, right?
It's about giving your time, your energy.
Your expertise to causes you care about. It's about making a difference.
And as we wrap up this deep dive into Midas Touch,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that it's not just about financial success.
It's about personal growth.
Right. It's about mastering those principles that lead to a fulfilling and impactful life.
It's about character development, building strong relationships, using your success to make the world a better place.
It's inspiring, really.
It is, and these principles are timeless. They can be applied to any field, any stage of life.
It's a really empowering message.
It is. We all have the potential to achieve great things.
If we're willing to put in the work, face those challenges.
Yeah, don't just read about the Midas touch. Go out and put those principles into action.
That's a great takeaway.
Experiment. Take risks. Don't be afraid to fail. The real magic is in the journey, not just the destination.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Midas Touch.
It's been a pleasure.
I hope you've gained some valuable insights and are feeling inspired to apply these principles to your own life.
I hope so too. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for your own Midas touch.